And welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I hope you guys are doing well out there. This is a patron member only show. We're going to continue, as I said, this into the off season, so expect this to be right around 5 to 6 o'clock. Every Thursday, we'll be going live here for you members of the channel and doing a particular show on a particular subject, just going on to this or that, just having a little bit of fun with it. And we're going to be looking at today 10 things that I think, I know it's a nice round number, but it was really kind of, as I was going through, it ended up being right at 10. 10 items that I think are kind of at the most important at the forefront here with the next Seahawks head coaching search. Oh shoot, did I not make this a member only video? Oh no. We got a lot of people in here. And these are 10 things that I think are the most important things when it comes to, I might have messed up, this is supposed to be a member only. No, Republic. Oh, goodness. Well, here we go. A lot of people for member only video. Well, this is going to end up being a little bit more than a member video today, actually. So you guys get a little bit of a bonus video. Oof, my bad. I had 10 things today I wanted to go through really quickly with you guys today. We're going to do a quick show. As I said, we're going to get more of these going. So I didn't turn this to offline. That's my bad. But I have 10 items I did want to go through with you guys today on just what I think would be the most important traits to look at with a coach. And we'll talk a little bit about the coaching search in just a second, because I know we want to talk a little bit about the updates that are going on, because we've got an important development here where our Seattle Seahawks, of course, are now the final two teams in play here as far as potentially here now the remaining head coaches, as we now have gotten it announced today that Raheem Morris has been announced as now the new head coach with the Atlanta Falcons. So this takes down the number of available teams out there looking for a head coach to 2, the Washington Commanders, and of course the Seattle Seahawks. And so this does seem to bode very well now for our Seattle team, as there is still quite a pick of the litter out there as far as available head coaches go. I know many of you guys have talked about Mike McDonald or Ben Johnson, who remains out there, but the Hawks are going to have to wait to get. Maybe he is connected into Washington already. That's, of course, the open rumor that's out there. We've still got, of course, Bill Belichick sitting out there, who looks like he might have to wait another year before he has the potential of getting another job, if there's another one out there for him to go get. So very, very, very interesting here on this path of it. And folks, this will be a little bit of a quick show today, because we do got a later show tonight. So we'll be popping this through a little bit faster than normal. Like I said, that's why we're going to be getting some more shows coming down the pike for you guys here throughout the course of this off season. So our Hawks sit in a good place as far as available candidates go. There was the burning rumor last night that I know had many of your guys' ears tickling a little bit about, Dan Quinn coming to Seattle. That this is the rumor we're hearing, is that he'll come to Seattle and maybe bring Chip Kelly with him from UCLA as his offensive coordinator. It's a wild, wild rumor. I would never have seen this particular one coming, but nonetheless, that is a rumor that we are hearing about right now, and in from the deal. And I think I'll actually go listed on this. There we go. So anybody who got in, you guys got lucky, as you'll be last. It's only gonna be members now. But so we're looking good. We've got some good candidates. Some of us, like myself, love the thought of Vrabel. I really love Ben Johnson, but it does seem like Ben Johnson's just so thoroughly connected right now with those guys that we have going down here. With Washington, because he's just such good friends reportedly with Peters, the new general manager in Washington. So this brings you back a line to where you go, okay, Raheem Morris is off the board, which I'm kind of thankful for. And I'll tell you, if I'm in that particular division out here in the NFC, I would say that it's kind of wide open there for the taking. You're going to have a young Dave Canales now going to the Carolina Panthers, a Raheem Morris now going to the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of youth in that division. Dennis Allen's still there with New Orleans. Boy, you're looking there at Tampa Bay, a team that is really still really pretty good in this respect, where they're standing and where they're sitting. I would have to think that I don't know. We just seem to be in a very good spot where we're sitting right now for some of the proverbial candidates. I'm going along the way around the bend here to say it, because I was not a big fan of Canales. I was not really a big fan of Raheem Morris at all. Felt like those guys were just not the right kind of fit. You don't go off of Pete Carroll to Dave Canales. You don't go off of Pete Carroll to Raheem Morris and his 17-31, record. I just think that would have been, a wrong way to kind of go about it, in my opinion, on that. So Let me take this out of the membership part here so people don't get confused on the deal here. So let's go to the 10 items I wanted to tease here at the top, because I know that we're caught up on the candidate. I know that we're all having our own little dog in the fight of the guy that we prefer and we like and we would want. But let's go to maybe just the 10 things that I feel like in my mind has really stood out here as far as being the most important thing at the head of this. That this is the most, important things that I would lock into, that would be traits I would look for in the next coach that I would almost say are the most important things. Are these a bit of, in some of these, hostage to the time and what's going on with this team? A little bit, but also it's what I think what would take to round out this rebuild in the right fashion, right? And to get it into the place where, it truly can get to a spot where now you can go and be a contender. Because I think in John Schneider's mentioning of this, that he thinks this team is ready to go. He thought that they underperformed this last year. He feels like the talent he's put on the football field is good enough at this point to go out there and be able to, take advantage of this in a major way. And so that to me tells me that if he can round out the things that are suffering a little bit right now, that aren't going well, that are especially have been long issues that are long standing with this team, then that's just going to be the quicker that you're going to be able to get back up into contending status. And the quicker, the faster, the better, of course. We all want to see that, at the head of this. So 10 items that I would look for here from your Seattle Seahawks next head coach. I think that these are almost necessities, quite frankly. Maybe he doesn't need to have all of these, but I do believe that this is going to be one of those things where you've got to have a lot of this at least. And the number one item I would put up here on the list would be discipline. You're going to need to have discipline from, and all my stuff's breaking today, dude. Come on, what's going on? Okay, we're going to have to do it without the scroller. We'll do it live. Discipline is going to be, to me, the number one thing you need to be brought into bear. For 14 years, Carroll, when he had a really talented team, got away with a lot of undisciplined stuff within the team, especially as far as flags go, playing outside the letter of the law, so to speak. They were disciplined in other ways, but they weren't technically refined. They weren't on their P's and Q's. And I think it's slacked off so much in recent years to a point now where there's a lot of room for one guy to come in with a heavy amount of discipline, a heavy hand of discipline, and be able to turn that back around in the right way very quick, right? Getting just a moderate amount of discipline injected into this team, now you get the benefits. Rather than being a 32nd ranked team as far as penalties go, you raise yourself up just a little bit into more of a middle sort of territory. That's what we're talking about. And in best case scenario, even take yourself up into one of the more top marks. I'm not asking him to be a miracle worker here, of course, so he's not going to overnight turn this around. But just a new coach coming in that puts that a little bit more at the forefront. I don't think that Carroll didn't have undisciplined teams because that was just a failing of him as a coach. I think it was that he chose to put his ducks in other places, that this were other things that he was going to lean on as things that were more important to him than the discipline aspect of things. And that just, I think, has led you away from it for so long. The penalties are kind of just a canary in the coal mine with this one. It's a variety of different things out there. Players playing under control, doing the right. It's a John Radigan coming down to down a punt last year. And rather than grabbing the punt and downing it like you'd see from any other player out there, he takes it and knocks the ball down through the back of the end zone and draws a penalty. Those just silly little stupid things that now get eliminated if you get somebody in here who's able to dispense, I think, just a little bit more of a disciplinarian kind of approach. Let me see if I can get this darn thing fixed. Nothing's working. Yeah, that's wild. Okay. Wonder if it just doesn't like the tab thing. Worked fine before. Okay. I'm going to give it up. Next on the list, and this is going to be a shocker for some of you because everybody I know is really, really, really caught up right now with offense and offense ruling the day. And so the number two thing on this would be an innovative defense. I know that offense is where people are leaning. We got our talent on the offense. Let's maximize the talent. I actually don't think that that's the most important trait for the new head coach coming in here. I actually think it's going to be more about an innovative defense, the type of defense that can push things forward across the board, all over the place, as far as secondary and the fronts and the blitz rate and the disguising and the complexity. They need to bring all of that because that much like the discipline, has been a big part missing from this team for so very long. It's in dire, dire need at this point. And so it's time to inject it in. It's time to bring it back into play a little bit here and utilize this a little bit more often. And again, it's all the way around. It's not just in your fronts, it's in your back end. It can be a creative approach up front, be it with the Dan Quinn, who has modernized his defense in certain respects from Carroll. He doesn't like to blitz, but he will bring complexity on the back end with his coverages. He will utilize stunts in order to, upend the offensive line, not be able to have them predictably know who's coming from which direction and where at all times, like we've been in the past. But they've got to be innovative in their defense. They've got to be less about holding on to old schemes and more about being fluid in a variety of ways. This is why I really do love Mike Vrabel as a given option here, because he is so fluid in every given defense. He'll give you 4-3 looks and 3-4 looks, and not do it because he's trying to hybridize it, but because he's come from the background of a Bill Belichick guy who knows how to teach all the ins and outs of both of those two defenses, all of how you need to play in your technique in both of those two defenses, rather than what we've kind of done, for instance, last 2 years where we tried to hybridize to a sort of a 3-4 that we were never really comfortable running and we never really fully embraced. So it's a different type of innovation you would get with the Vrabel. But I think that as much as we would get caught up with offense, it's this defense that needs to be pushed forward. It's this defense that needs to start having some built-in advantages into its play on a weekly basis that help the players, rather than just requiring the players 24/7 to go out there and be a little bit of miracle workers, in my opinion. One second, I'm going to turn something off here. Third thing on the list for me is bring identity to the program. This team over the past couple of years has been missing a sense of identity, a sense of an approach in what they're doing. It has been, we want to be everything everywhere. We want to throw spaghetti up on the wall and see what sticks. Today we'll be a deep passing team. Tomorrow we'll try to hammer the run game and be tough. Today we're going to be defensive and we're going to just sit back in soft zones and let you pick us apart. And this week we might try not to do that, but we might blitz a little bit, but not too much. We didn't really have we don't hit really hard. We're not really tacklers. We're not a real physical team. We're not quite finesse. We don't really lean into being finesse. You just weren't any one kind of thing. And so you never had an identity to lean back upon. I don't think that they could ever really truly look inside and go, no, the old know thyself term that gets bandied about. I don't think that they looked inside and said, I know myself right now where I stand. I know who we are and what we are. I think they did feel a little bit more like we're just kind of, spinning the wheel, and whatever the wheel comes around to this week, that's kind of a little bit of what we'll try to be. And so you never really became any one thing over the past couple of years. I think that's one of the reasons that this rebuild hasn't fully worked with Carroll, is that he wasn't able to institute that same kind of real identity that you had with the Legion of Boom. It wasn't just the defense, it was the toughness of the team, the circle of toughness, the running the ball and controlling the line of scrimmage on one side, doing the same on the other side. It was about hitting and tackling and playing fast. And that's just not, these were not things that you would say are synonymous with recent Seahawks teams, in my view of it. Hexagon 7, thank you for becoming a Hawks Nest Ring of Honor. And again, folks, welcome on in if you got to slide on in today, as I was doing this as a member stream and I sort of messed up and didn't hit the right button when I did that. So that's on me a little bit today. But appreciate you for becoming a member, Hexagon. Thank you for joining on up. Devo Martzall, thank you for the $10 donation. Devo, I know you're already a member, so you got to weigh in here, but thank you for jumping on in. He says, hey, Brando, good to see you. Good to see you. Might as well get the dono train rolling. Well, thank you for getting it rolling today. I was meaning to do a stream on me for free to you guys today, but I've been a little bit off on the details here with the setups at times, do a little too last minute, I suppose, but it's great to see you in the chat. Thank you for the donation. I really, really do appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who is a member and patron of the channel. It's very much appreciated, your support, and very kind of you guys at that. So we've got bringing identity to the program, innovative defense, and discipline. These would be three things that I think are the first things at the forefront that I'm kind of wanting to see with the coach. But there are more beyond that. And I think these are all, I'm not going to say equally important. If I had to pick, certainly I think the ones at the top of this list are probably the most important, but I think you're going to come to find that most all of these are pretty equally important in what they're needing to bring. And as I say, the things that you've been missing, you bring this identity, that thing that you've been missing, you bring an innovative defense, you bring a sense of discipline to this team. you will have a better performing team. Does that equate to two to three better games a year in win-loss record? I think maybe so. I certainly think that if you do these, you can capture as many of these 10 things as possible. You are looking at a team that then is going to find its way to contending very quickly, very quickly. Number 4, a true partnership with John Schneider. You've got to have an ability here to come in and work with John Schneider. I think that this is a place where John Schneider is really the better suited guy to be able to work with the next head coach rather than the next head coach needing to find his way to work around the manners of John. John's no Trent Baalke. He's no guy that, you're going to see a lot of fighting with, I don't think, in the locker room. He's had to deal with for 14 years being an underling of Coach Carroll in many respects, having to answer to Coach Carroll in many respects. And so now he's in a position of, yes, having that power in a way that he didn't before, but I think he also understands the give and take nature of being a general manager, the back and forth that you need to have, which battles you need to fight. Think about the war, don't mean to win every battle, maybe the war, just keep that in mind. I think he's got a little bit of that understanding of balance at play, just kind of by necessity and not having the traditional, managerial type powers in play. I think that's required him to sort of have to, know how to go about this creatively already. And I think he's going to be the best suited to bring any guy that comes in. But nonetheless, you need a guy that's not going to rock the boat with John and come in and bitch and moan about every other move. He's got to come in to be on the same page, give John that support in there, and truly be able to work well with him. Again, this maybe not on this one as much of an important one as the first 3, I would say on this, but certainly an important one nonetheless. Number 5, can he develop young talent? Can he develop young talent? I think that this is another very, very important one, and I think I don't have to explain to you guys as to why this one would be particularly important, because you've got a plethora of young talent all across the board. And so with that being the case, I'll try to get you guys a list of these here so you can see these over my shoulder. Let's go with a little gradient maybe. No. Background like that so you guys can see this as I go along here. Number 5, can he develop talent? So talent from your Boye Mafes to Charles Cross to Abraham Lucas, your 2 backs in the backfield, JSN, go down the line, go down the list. You've got a lot of young guys that are very, very talented. Derek Hall, that you're looking to try to get a little bit more out of, that you want to have them now take their, some from some of those guys, in the case like a Derek Hall, but in some of the guys, you want them to actually be taking a nice big physical step forward and becoming the version of the player that you foresaw when you drafted him. And that's going to require somebody that is a developer of talent, that's not merely looking for a fully stacked, completed team, a team of vets across the board that know what they need to do, know their job. I don't have to, build them up. They're built up, and now I get to take them from there. It's going to be a guy that can build up, that needs to have that ability or has shown that ability to, foster that young talent, because this is where beyond even the first 4 points on the board of this, of course, if this young talent doesn't develop, you can have discipline, you can have innovative defense, you can bring identity to a program. He can have his partnership with John, but you still don't get anywhere if this young talent doesn't come forward. I think we all firmly believe that the nucleus is in place for them to go out and perform and to be contenders here into the future. But now it's about that development and them starting to take those steps to go. Can Boye Mafe get to a dominant level? Can Derek Hall really rebound off what was kind of a tough rookie year? Can you get more from a Cam Young, who was a little rough coming out of Mississippi State last year, gave you some flashes this year? Can you bring him along? Hey, how about Mike Morris coming along? I know he spent the year on the IR, but still a guy I think that the team has a lot of hopeful upside for. So a lot of young talent. You've got to maximize that. He's got to be a developer of young talent, whoever you're bringing in here. And doesn't matter whether you're young or old, you're going to have that as a real big part of what you do, because you're not going to be given a really old team. This was the 4th youngest team overall, I think, in football last year. They're going to get a little bit more, maybe older next year, potentially. Might get younger too, depending on the cuts they make and where they slice and dice. So young talent and the development of it will be a big, big part of this. Number 6 on my list, he must be capable of hiring a quality staff. This is one that we don't know on certain guys. When it comes to Ben Johnson, when it comes to Mike McDonald, I think we're all kind of guessing on this one as whether or not these guys are going to be able to put a staff together that's going to be able to get it done, that is, going to be exciting, that's going to be able to bring it. I don't know on those guys. Don't know. When it comes to Dan Quinn, I have a little bit more confidence that with him that he can build a pretty good staff. Mainly specifically that there is, like, for instance, he's got the track record with Raheem Morris, who just, went and got a job. He was working there under Dan Quinn. Joe Witt, you got, of course, the offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, if his name can come to me. And then you have Steve Sarkisian after that. So there were some good hires. I don't think it's no doubt about it kind of thing that Dan Quinn is going to give you tremendous hires across the board. No, I don't know if it's, I think it's a good chance of, I don't know if it's undoubted, but if you know a little bit more with him of what he brings to play than you do with a Ben Johnson or Mike McDonald in regards to that staff. And the staff matters. The guy calling the plays, especially if you have a defensive-minded head coach, for instance, is going to be a very, 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 very important job, very close almost to coach, you could say, with the talent that we have on this team and with where the NFL is going and with where you've seen defensive-minded head coaches need to have success, is having that offensive guy there that can really, really drive it home. So capable, quality staff, certainly another big part of this that we've got to consider, but that's a little bit of, I think, from all your perspective, you tell me no duh on that particular one. Next up, we've got clarity on a long or short-term approach. Okay? So you never want to be in that middle ground territory. Part of the problem, I think, in our last couple of years is that we've found ourselves in more of the middle ground territory, both trying to compete and trying to rebuild. Trying to compete, trying to rebuild. It's hard to do both things at the very same time. It sounds good in theory, but you sometimes just got to pick one method of approach. The next coach, and John Schneider's got to be in lockstep, of course, with him, but you've got to pick your lane on what you want to do going forward. Do you want to really drive for this short term? Is that really the view, is that this team is just, as I said at the top, it's discipline, innovative defense, bring in identity. You put these things together and the next coach goes, hey, I got all three of those things covered. No doubt I can. Those three things are like, that's a layup. That's a layup. I can do those things all day, night. That's simple. And by that, then that will raise the team. We can compete now. Let's go. But if they also come in and say it's a tremendously young team, we don't know what we're going to be doing at the quarterback position long term. We've got to eat a lot of dead money this offseason to clip away that doesn't work or that's grown to be too expensive. And then let's move it on into next year. The Niners will be another year removed from their Super Bowl window. Who knows where the Rams are? Stafford's probably getting close to retirement at that point. Maybe that's a little bit more of a righter time to strike. I'm okay with either way, but do pick a lane. Don't drive down the center. Don't drive down that little mini ravine thing that they have on highways, right? Pick the lane for smoother driving. Where do you want to go with it? I think we as fans will support it with the new coach because it's understandable. It's a new coach. The theory here that he's got to come in here and be competing instantaneously as he's trying to turn around those things I mentioned up at the top is, it'd be great to see, but I'm not counting on it either. Hoping for it, but not counting on it, right? All right, number 8. And this is one that you're going to see tonight on the B&B show that I'm going to be presenting on that. And this is going to be leading into my mock draft tonight in a big way. And that is a plan for the trenches. You can't hire any of these guys and just have them go, the offensive line. Yeah, sure, right. Another thing where I say, like a lot of these things in recent years, if you go up and down this list, absent, I think, a true partnership with John, I think if you go up and down this list, all of these things have been just kind of opening like a small cut that starts out as a paper cut, but starts to get more and more to a point where it's almost gaping years down the line. That's what we've dealt with these things. So these are things that, again, are long-standing parts of what this team has been kind of having to forge through here recently. And this is a place where I think you look to and you go, okay, being that that's been the case, let's now double back on this and let's concentrate on both sides of these ball, understanding that. The last couple of years, Coach Carroll's teams have got their butts whooped at the line of scrimmage. It's been startling. It's been odd. It's been strange. Carroll is a pretty grizzled, hardened coach for all of his likability and his genteel ways. He is a guy that still likes that old school approach of we're going to win at the line of scrimmage. And so to watch both of his line of scrimmages get their butts kicked kind of on a weekly basis the past couple of years especially has been tough to watch. And the Hawks have got to go back to taking care of business here. It's got to, in my opinion, yes, come with coaches that can teach it and make it work and have techniques and use all of the running game, for instance, which is something that has been, of course, missing here for a while. Utilization of the full length of the running game, both horizontal as long with getting vertical with north and south. But also, you got to have a bit of a willingness here to invest in the talent. That's what makes great offensive lines. That's what makes great defensive lines. You can find your diamonds in the rough. You can find your 30-something-year-old player getting down to the end of his career who's willing to put in some Superman offseason to get himself in because he knows the end's coming down and he wants that championship and he's hungry and he's a leader, kind of intimating a little bit like a Jaron Reed type, right? You can find those guys, but you really got to draft them high to get the good quality ones. And I think that this is especially the case when it comes to the offensive line, because the offensive line has become so valuable for teams when they recognize there's a quality one in the draft. They usually jump on it with 2 feet. Maybe the guys don't go in the first round as much, but as you get into second, third, fourth round territory, if there's any good ones, they're getting plucked by everybody. And the Hawks have got to show a little bit more willingness here to go and get that investment in the draft here as we come up, especially for the interior part of this line. It'd be great if Oluwatimi can work. It'd be great if Bradford could work, but you might need to go get a second round center. You might need to go get a first round guard. That might be what this requires instead. And I think the next coach coming in's got to have a keen, good understanding of the trenches mattering. I think what's nice here is that most of these candidates that we've looked at, I think will get this. With Quinn, I think so. I mean, he's gone with both Atlanta and Dallas. They've had pretty good lines. He's not necessarily had a part on either of those 2 points. But when it comes to, I think, Ben Johnson, he will definitely understand this with Detroit background and what they've done with that line and building it up the way they built it up with their investments. And then McDonald, certainly that Baltimore Ravens line through the years has remained pretty strong, that they've usually taken the time to make sure that they're constantly reinforcing the ranks there. So I think that this is one that is going to be addressed here this offseason. As I said here later on in the B&B show, you're going to see in our first mock draft of the year, when it comes from my side of it and what I want to do with this, I'm going to be driving very hard into the trenches in the early part of this draft, especially because I don't think that we've done enough of that in recent years. It's been too many back-end guys we're trying to get by on. It's too many one-year deals. It's too many guys kind of at the end of their road when it comes to their playing career. Got to get a little bit more investment, I think, going into the other way with this. This one's a bit of an odd one here for number 9, but this is one that I certainly don't think is going to surprise anybody that I included this on the list. And that is how to teach tackling. Now, this sounds like a little bit of maybe a mocking kind of deal here in the way I'm wording this, but it's really not. What I'm meaning by this is that in the recent years in the NFL, it's been very hard to teach players how to tackle. You do not have the two-a-days. You do not have the padded practices like you did in the past. And the coaches will tell you up and down, they will swear by the fact the only way you get better at tackling is by actually teaching it and working on it and working in a live action as you're teaching and working on it. All 3 of those. You can't just teach it. You can't have them just sort of going through the motions on it. Like, okay, you'll approach him like this, head under control, get your base underneath you, hands up. No, you've got to come up and be able to tackle. And so there are teams that have been able to get around these rules and regulations and find a manner to get the tackling reinforced. There's other teams like us here in recent memory that don't seem to have an understanding of how to get it better taught and better trained. I think if the team spends less time on the field with the particular defense that they're running, this will also help, because I think some of the poor tackling can also be traced back to the fatigue factor that the Seahawks build up as they go along through the year. But some of it is also just poor tackling. Some of this is some of the players I think you target in the draft, because I think it's going to start to come down to just, does the guy have it or not when you find him in the draft? Because if he doesn't have it, you're not going to have the means to get him to figure it out unless he's got true personal ownership to make that happen. And not a lot of guys do, right? Not a lot of guys on their own are going to be out there trying to, I don't even know if you could really. I mean, it's the lifting weights, all that stuff's great, but the getting your body under control, wrapping up, bringing a guy down to the ground, it's very hard to just sort of teach that with a dummy, for instance. So this is one that might seem a little silly on the surface, but it's really not. The best defenses in the NFL tackle. And it is a bit of a secret sauce, because I don't think that I think everybody in the NFL right now is kind of scrambling to solve, how do we get better at this when we can't teach it in the old ways? We used to be able to throw them through a gauntlet. We can't throw them through a gauntlet, but the gauntlet was necessary before in order to create the player. I think it's tough. I think it's a challenge for coaches, and I don't have a really good answer on what they should do. The last one here, my number 10, final item that I think is the important spot, and this is maybe potentially, I think, the most important because, you can have discipline, you can have an innovative defense, you can bring identity to a program, you can have a true partnership with John, and you can even develop the young talent, teach them the technique. Might bring a quality staff, might pick that lane short term or long, have that plan for the trenches, might even know how to teach tackling. But if you can't connect with the football players in this day and age, it is all dust in the wind, Kansas style. It all means nothing. You cannot look that young man in the eyes and explain to him why the most important thing in his life right now is to throw his body on the line, is to go home and study more tape, don't turn on the Xbox. To understand that this playing career that you have right now is a valuable, wonderful thing. And if you maximize it right now, if you get the most out of it right now, you can be a legend. You can be part of a legendary team that will never die. It's hard to do. You're youthful, distractions every which way but loose. How do I lock you into our program, into buying in, into that there is only football? Carroll was able to do it, the Legion of Boom. He was able to have those guys not only become tightly knit off the field, but they weren't talking about necessarily just video games, or they were locked into talking about the sport off the field, grinding, talk about how to get better. This happens, let's do that. That happens, let's do this. Can he connect with the players? Got to have a way to connect with the players. All those other things can be brilliant as hell, but if you can't get the message across, if their eyes glaze over and they look up at the ceiling, all that other stuff does not matter. And this is going to be the hardest thing for John Schneider, I think, because how do you determine that on a candidate? All these guys are going to talk really well. All these guys are going to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and charismatic. How do you pull from within that guy that he's going to be a connection? And I think the only way you can do it is by talking to former players or former coaches that have been in connection with these candidates, and will tell you that that's what they are able to bring. I think when you talk about what brings you back to Dan Quinn, even though it's not an option that gets, I know, a lot of us super excited necessarily, and it has us all jumping up and down, but when you talk about getting back to an option like Dan Quinn, you arrive there because you know what his former players talk about is his ability to connect with them, is that ability to, I get my message across, you hear my message, you go and execute my message. And that's something that, as I say, maybe the most important point for Schneider when he's looking at this next head coach. And then you add on top of that the familiarity with the program, and it may be enough to seal Quinn in, especially if they feel like they've got the hire in place, like Chip Kelly and the offensive side of the ball, in their opinion, is just going to be completely taken care of. I think Vrabel brings a lot of the same with this. I like Vrabel a little bit more than Quinn, but it's a part that I think that is questionable when you talk about necessarily knowing for sure when it comes to, let's say, younger coaches. One thing to go from being a coordinator and getting the buy-in message to being a head coach and getting that message bought in. Still like Johnson's the number one for me. I still got Vrabel at number two in my personal list right now as it stands. But this would be the thing that I think from a Schneider's perspective, he has to most kind of get around or figure out in his own mind in order to determine the best candidate. But those are my 10. A coach that brings discipline, an innovative defense, brings identity to the program, a true partnership with John, can develop young talent, must be capable of hiring a quality staff, clarity on a long or short-term approach. You got to pick a lane, a plan for the trenches, how to teach tackling, and can he connect with these players? How do you connect with Gen Z, I ask? How do you do it? I hear from so many friends out there and people I know and all walks of life, that from managers to small business owners and everything in between, that talk about sometimes some of the difficulty at times in getting across to a bit of the younger generation. It is a skill. It is a certain skill. I want to thank you guys for checking out the channel today, and thank all the members and patrons of the channel today, as this is a patron and member show. Those that got in just under the wire before I got it unlisted on there. So congrats to you guys. Thank you, though, to all of those that do support the channel. We'll be doing these member shows throughout this off season. Holy hand grenade. I'm going to put this out there. We're supposed to be waiting for Mike McDonald and all that stuff after the Super Bowl. We're going to need an OC. What about Josh McDaniels? I would be pretty anti Josh McDaniels. I think that he's got a way of rubbing players the wrong way a little bit. We talk about that, getting across, messaging, connecting with players. He did well at New England. I think the other stops that he's had in Denver and Oakland now, or Las Vegas, are two places where I think that there's kind of a given narrative there that follows him around a little bit. Good to see you, Megan. Good morning, football breakdowns. We want Ben. We want Ben. I'm still a Ben Johnson guy too, as well. Sign me up on that. Well, that one as well. Jag Talk, Sports, Jose Rodriguez. What's up, man? Tom Eaton, weird thought, but maybe Hurd has not interviewed because he knows we are looking for an offensive coach and he wants to try for DC. Not that I want that, but might explain why he's been just the here. Maybe. It could be that he's like, he knows the defensive line coach will be there available for him anywhere whenever he wants to go jump on it, but that makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Brandon Cut, just look at the Ravens defense. That's all that needs to be said about that. They got a great one. Snail says, congratulations, Seahawks fans. Morris is a Falcon. Thank the Lord for that. Boy, was I worried about that one. Somebody came in my chat yesterday and they were like, I forget who it was, but they were like, yeah, I'm kind of prophetic. I first saw this happening and it occurred. I first saw that happening and it occurred. I have foreseen Raheem Morris as the next Seahawks head coach. Let us hope it does not occur. It's like, ugh. Why are you going to drop that on me now? Why can drop that on me now? Mark Abercorn, how you doing? Yeah, I got the Feed Me More Seahawks. I messed up on the member only. We'll have to do another Saturday member only stream. It's turned into a subscriber stream. Feed More Seahawks, Belichick to Michigan. I don't think Belichick wants to go back to college. I would be gobsmacked if that was the way that played out. Lou, how you doing? Thank you again, Devo, for the donation. Josie, sorry, Ravens over Niners in the Super Bowl. That's the way I see it going too. Clivic, yeah, I don't know where to become a member. I'd also see a thing in the description on become a member. I've been meaning to ask that for a long time. There should be a member button if you're subscribed to the channel, Clivic. There should be a join member button right next. It depends on the browser you use. And if you can't, Clivic, go there. You can always go to the patron side and utilize it on that too, because they both get the same benefits. So if you don't see the membership button, you can go to the patron. The patron isn't usually the link of my shows. I didn't have it on this one because it was a members only show. But usually I have the link for the patron channel down there in the description on each of the videos. So if you can't find the member button, because I know some browsers it doesn't show up, then you can just pop over to the patron and both sides get the bennies. Jag Sports Talk with Jose said, I was okay with Morris, but that's just me. Well, look, there's a lot of people in the league that like him quite a bit, Jose, to your point. Not just Atlanta, but where he supposedly gave a great interview and was just wooed them with his energy. I just looked at the background and what he had done, and I just didn't know if there was a lot there from the background that really spoke to me and said, this is a guy right now that is our hottest commodity to be the next head coach. I don't want second, third, fourth rung. I want the best possible candidate, and if it's not that, then number two, the number three. And I don't know if I even came into the top three with him when I really went through my mind as far as the real best guys you could put for that position. Raheem would have been pretty far on my personal list when you measure up against the other options. But Atlanta hired him. Certainly there would have maybe been another team potentially too on that. So we liked him a lot. Talon Deal says, hey, B, I'm all in on Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald, but someone got me thinking when they said Mike is this version of Brandon Staley. Thoughts? I don't buy it personally. So let's go through that comp. Mike McDonald equals Brandon Staley. First, Brandon Staley was running really a pure kind of version of the Fangio cover 2 shell. So it wasn't kind of his own thing. He was aping a lot of what Fangio did. He's a guy that's run it well, one of the few coordinators who has done so, but it's not really kind of his own thing. He had Aaron Donald in his prime. Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive wrecking force that the game has seen in the last 10 years of the game, surpassing, in my opinion, even J.J. Watt. And so he had that as a backbone along with a Rams team that was all in at that time, going across the board to maximize their defensive talent to the utmost. So, i.e., kind of had a lot to work with, including a generational player down on that defensive line. When we go over to Mike McDonald, he doesn't have a generational player down that defensive line. Has he gotten the best season of Jadeveon Clowney's career out of him? Yeah, he has. Has he turned Justin Matabuke into one of the better 3-techs maybe in the league? And has he starting to rise that play? Yeah, he's started to rise that area, but those guys weren't known commodities. They weren't in his back pocket walking into this season. They've developed into that under him. He's utilizing Jadeveon right. For those of you guys that are on this channel and has been with me for years, I talked a lot about Clowney and that these defensive coaches just don't use him correctly. His versatility ends up being used against him. And he goes to Mike McDonald's defense, and he's just going to be a terror coming off the edge, blind side, here you go. And it works like a charm, especially when you can pull the double teams off his back. And so Mike McDonald didn't have necessarily the collection of talent I think that the Rams defense had that allowed Staley to get that job. The other part of it is that, yes, he learned at the foot of Wink Martindale, but Mike McDonald has made this its own thing. It's not really just Martindale's defense at all. It really isn't. I think the complexity of the coverages on the back end, the use of, I feel like Martindale was more of, if you see the stack fronts, you're getting the blitz. And Mike McDonald's a little bit more of, I'm utilizing the stack fronts to usually probably not blitz, but make you think that I am. And just the confusion he creates without having to lay himself to bear on the back end as far as vulnerable goes. I can't necessarily go to that. I can see on the surface of it how it could appear a little bit like that, but that's where I would root out the differences between the two. Good morning, football breakdowns. We know how good McDonald's defense was against the Niners. Let's see how good Johnson's offense is against the run. I feel like that will be important. Johnson's offense is against them. Yeah, agreed. Interesting to see what Johnson does in the way that he attacks them. Niner fans will tell you got to run outside. So I think we're going to get a heavy dose of Jahmyr Gibbs to the outside in this game. Probably a lot of that. But you also feel like they're probably going to try to attack into the middle of the field, that Niner defense as well, if they can get away with it, like they did last week a bit. Tommy says identity. What if we just identify as a good team? I think all good teams have an identity in what they are. I think that they all have a bit of, being good is technically an identity, but I think all teams have a way that they go about winning games. The good teams do. It's not that they can only win that way, but they know who they have the better understanding about who they are and what they are. And I think when especially times get rough and things are getting hard in a game, when you can go back to your foundations and who and what you are, I think that can be a bit of a stabilizing force. I think when you start to play the game of we're going to be everything everywhere, you start to not have a commitment level to just one sort of type of ideology that you need to in order to get good at that. You end up being kind of half-assing all of them across the board a bit. I'd be fine if Vrabel if we brought in good coordinators. Me too. I do think Arthur Smith probably comes with him, I watch, so I think that would check one of your coordinator boxes at that point. But I do think he comes with him. Jason Schumacher, I'd prefer Ben, but would be happy with Vrabel. That's my list. That's my 1-2 punch, Jason. I'll lead with Ben, but I'll be fine with Vrabel. Jason says, okay, Vrabel might be good for our guys as far as discipline. McDonald, I have no idea, honestly. Well, his defenses have played pretty disciplined to be able to run kind of as fast and free as they do defensively. I mean, he's got them on some real dotting I's and crossing the T's kind of play because there's a lot of details to that defense when you're going to run it with that much kind of complexity. But these younger guys, I think, Jason, to your point, that is the part that you get the boom bust quotient with Ben Johnson or Mike McDonald, where you have a lot of question marks on some of these items, but you also have so much of a arrow going up on so many more of these items. Bob Hayes says, stop the music, stop the hoops, get serious about football. I watched the Raiders defensive coordinators, interesting too. Players love him, intelligent, Yale grad, played and made their defense really good with lesser talent. They did have a single good year there with them this last year, where they all ended up where the kind of statistically ended up bearing out. Certainly, as to your point, they're not a very stacked, talented unit over there in Las Vegas. He seems to be a guy with a star on the rise, but boy, just another kind of, for me, I watch another guy that if I'm going down the list of items and player, coaches I'm looking at on this thing from, Ben Johnson, Vrabel, Mike McDonald, Quinn. I mean, I might even go Evero before I would go with the Raiders DC. Kovic says, yeah, I'm going to be devastated if John Schneider doesn't pursue another Ben Johnson interview and Ben Johnson ends up in Washington. I love John Schneider trying to think outside the box with the current second candidate list, but, oh, come on. I know. It does get brutal on some of the names that you look at and you go, really? We're going that way? Mr. Kane, my brother from another mother. How you doing? Good to see you in the house. Jason says if he could do it for the Hawks half of what he did for the Ravens, we would be in a pretty good place, I think. He'd be great. Schumacher, he is, as I say, he's third. He's third on my list right now, on my candidate list. So I'm a McDonald guy. He would certainly take this defense to a cutting edge place from being old and archaic to cutting edge and kind of do it almost overnight. Play Grade, y'all getting a free membership stream. He's a kind content and a giving content creator. John Hobbs, thanks for the shout out for Pumpkin. He's chilling. Rally Cat. Cool Breeze, we have weapons. Draft the trenches. That's where I'm at. It's where I'm going to be leaning tonight on that mock. And Jason, that's the same thing I'll be doing on my mock tonight, I think, is it'll be looking to trade back. Move on back. I watch we're going to re-sign Leonard, I think. Chris, the tackling issue is huge, bro. It is. I wouldn't normally include that as a necessary item for a candidate I'm bringing in to coach, but not only because it's been a glaring issue here for years, Chris, but then also because of the fact that this is a big league-wide issue. So it's also a looking forward thing of this is a problem in the moment. This thing could become even more of a problem as we go along in the foreseeable future. How do I solve that? How do I find a creative method of attack to do this? It could be in a technique. It could be in how you train it. It could be in a variety of ways, but you've got to find something that's imaginative to do this. And it's got to be outside of guys, a tackling sled or whatever, you'd have them do old school wise, because you're not going to run Oklahoma drills anymore. That ain't going to happen. And coaches for years leaned upon a lot of the old techniques for teaching tackling. I mean, they don't just have a whole list of other things they can do to teach it. They're like, we used to always do this. This was our thing. Can't do that anymore. But that's our thing. Sorry, can't do it anymore. But Roxanne Bro in the house. How you doing? I'm hearing Mr. Cartman's. How do I reach these kids? That's right. How do I reach these kids? Right. It's tough, They got their own way. Every generation's got its own way. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's, different. Different. Space Chip Kelly. Those were the rumors being connected yesterday. It was Quinn and Kelly. Pretty crazy. Talk about a left field rumor that nobody was sort of expecting. What? Father First says either Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald. I love it. I think we're all of pretty like mind on this hire from a fan base standpoint. Tommy says, what's weird is how does Dan Campbell connect with players so well when Pete could not? Do they prefer to just chew on ankles? Well, I think certainly Dan's got a message that seems to be resonating there. I mean, he's that hard-nosed kind of, he's kind of got the teddy bear kind of aspect to him a little bit, but he's also got a hard-nosed part to him. And, I don't know. That's the part I when it comes to how to connect with players, how to teach tackling. These are all really complicated questions that I don't even think I have an answer for how you would do it. I just know that the next guy's going to have an answer or a creative approach to get it done outside of, I'm going to do what we've always done. That's always worked. Doesn't seem like it's working as much, or at least that whatever is working currently for you that you can continue to bring over to here, I guess. But I'm not sure, Tommy. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, Grenade, we need to ask, do they want to come to Seattle? I don't see why they wouldn't, but is there something they might not like? Well, you could have it be that they want to be East Coast guys, right? I mean, that's rumors we've heard about Mac McDonald, is that he wants to stay on the East Coast. So, I mean, that could come into impact some of this, I guess, a little bit. Can't think of any reason they wouldn't want to come here, though. I think you got us and the Commanders left. We're a vastly superior, more talented team than the Commanders. We've got more of a track record of recent success than they do. Great facilities, great fan base. We know what our name's going to be next year. John says, I was wrong on Morrisby. You got me freaked out yesterday with that whole I've seen a vision thing, John. Sean, okay? You freaked me out with that. Jesus says, I don't think Pete was forceful enough about the discipline, honestly. No, I think that's a part of his coaching deal that I just don't think he holds as much of a importance upon. I think that's a little bit of the leaning so heavily into the positivity side of things, and, really wanting that to be what carries the day, that sometimes has you leaning away from the negative reinforcement of when you have to get negative. But there are times you have to get negative. There are times I understand leaning to the positive, but there are moments where that can't be the answer at every turn. And especially when you're trying to institute some form of discipline. And I think Carroll just made a choice at one point or another of, if I'm going to embrace negative reinforcement or stay positive and find a creative approach to teach that tackling or that resolve to want to be committed to what I'm wanting you to do, I'll do it in another fashion. But I think that the next guy is going to have to just do more of the just old school, straightforward fashion of getting it done. Or at least certainly have that in their makeup to do it. Gabriel says, I have an older coworker who really was disappointed when I told him Atlanta hired Raheem Morris. He wanted the Seahawks to get him. He's against hiring an offensive guy. We live in different worlds. Hey, I mean, it's something I was hearing a lot of people like. I mean, Jose was talking about here earlier on the stream above that, there's a lot of people that do like the Raheem Morris. I was told, well, he'll know how to take care of San Francisco and the Rams offense. He'll have a plan of attack to go at them. Which may be the case. It's just the recent track record hasn't been there for me. If you're going to go with a defensive-minded coach, in my opinion, Gabriel, then give me a defensive coach who's had really upper-level defensive success, at least recently, where he's trending in that way rather than more middle-of-the-road kind of in his production. And that's really where Raheem Morris has really kind of more been. And that's with Aaron Donald. That's with Jalen Ramsey for at least a couple of the years there. Three Hours says we should get either Ben Johnson or McDonald. The Commanders are the only team left. True. Very true. It's worked out pretty well for us. I like where we're sitting with remaining candidates. A couple of good choices there to be had. We're not like all the chairs have been taken and we've got one last little rickety chair with 3 legs to go sit on. Oh, we got a couple chairs still left. We got a couple of lazy boys still out here to go sit on. 3 hour, nothing wrong with McDonald over Rabel. They're neck and neck on my list. I'm happy either way. Gabriel says, does anyone know what our culture even was? Hear a lot about it being important to keep our culture, but I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, it's not the culture we had in 2012 or 2013, laughing out loud. Agreed. I think it was a different culture just because it happened to be under the same lineage of coaching front office didn't mean it was the same kind of culture. Agree with you, Gabriel. And that's a little bit of that lack of identity thing I talk about. I think what they mean in the culture is it's a positive place that fosters players who love to be here, which is cool. Those are all good things. But I think what you're looking for and what I'm looking for a little bit is some more meat on the bone when it comes to that a bit. Briar says, if the rumors about Johnson, the GM of the Commanders, are true, which I don't think it is, then I'd assume he goes there, and I'd be perfectly fine with McDonald. Could work out that way, and I'll be happy with it. The mock draft is going to be a stream, 3 hour. We're going to be on at 7:00 Pacific Standard Time in another hour. I'll be on the channel here too, so I'll have it streamed over to here as well. Both sides, both ways. Kevin McCall, I'll be honest, with most campaigns, this is getting boring to guess over, especially with the high risk of flubbing it. Seahawks sign Bill. Oh man, it would make the Seattle fans' heads might explode if you got Bill Belichick. I watched, Brandon, have you seen any of James Williams tape yet? 6'3", 220 safety out of the U of Miami. Cam Light. Yeah, I liked a lot of his tape that I've watched a little bit so far. I haven't watched game tape, just did kind of the highlight, quick look at him to get a feel for him, but he moves really well for his size, really fluid athlete. Big boy too out there, and he can lay some hits. So I liked what I saw of him so far. I haven't put a grade yet on him. I don't look at him as a first round talent, probably not a second round talent. My late second, third might be where I have him in at. Be interesting to see too if there's not a team that tries to potentially move him into linebacker when it's all said and done. I think he can play safety, so I think he's going to be capable at the next level of doing it. But of course, Cam, if he had gone to a different team, might have been pushed a little bit more to linebacker. He went to the right place in Seattle to put him out at safety. Or is that I like that the Panthers get Canales. Bryce, he needs all the help, and Canales is good like that. Yeah, it's a good fit for Bryce. I mean, you're trying to salvage the Bryce Young pick and not make that look like it's going to be a bust. Then you want to bring in a guy that's going to help him out in the most. I think the Carolina thought they were getting that with Frank Reich a little bit. But, the last 2 jobs Canales has done with Geno and Baker especially super stands out, as he seems to be a coach that's really fully capable of maximizing his quarterback play to the utmost. Tommy says, watch John hire someone that nobody's talking about. He probably got Charlie Weiss on the phone right now or something. Oh my God. It's possible, man. Anything's possible when it comes to that. Tommy Eden says, I wouldn't characterize Raheem as just a defensive coach. He's coached offense too. That is probably a key factor in his hire. The league is going towards offensive coaches for a reason. It's true. He's got a bit of a background to the offensive side of the ball at Atlanta. Did Raheem. I kind of went from defense to offense, back to defense a little bit. So a little bit of fluidity there. Loving a third round rookie for our safeties. Yeah, I think that's definitely a way you could go 3 hour. Especially if you're going to cut both your top 2 safeties and Jamal and Quandre, is that then you clip them out, and then Love moves to one of the 2 spots, draft the other, have some backups, roll with the position a little bit cheaper. Play angry is Bobby Slowick still out there? Still out there. Will be out there. Don't know how much interest there'll be from Seattle. But this is definitely a big-time guessing game at this point. Who knows where they're leaning? Rand the Cut says Canales and Young can be great. I think Canales got a lot of potential in him. I'll say this though, Rand. I'm not sure Young's got a lot of potential in him. I think they're definitely having buyer's remorse on that one, and they're going to try to salvage it. But I don't know. I don't know if Bryce Young is ever going to be fully capable of being anything more than a middle of the road quarterback in this league, at best. You know. Rand the Cut, I like Slowick too. There's not a lot of heat with him to connected with Seattle right now for some reason. I watched nothing is going to be like 2012-13, arguably the best defense ever, once in a lifetime. That's right. We're never going to replicate that again. You're never going to make that happen again. Legendary team, legendary defense. You can't look to make that the way you do it again. But there's some other ways of doing it to find some success that can also work. Tommy says, side note, Spoon's a finalist for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. It's good to hear. Hopefully he gets it. Tommy, I think we need a young rookie safety and maybe a rookie coverage linebacker so they can develop and grow with our young corners. Very important they get together like the LOB. Be nice to get the young core together. Linebacker I'm going to be looking at tonight in the mock draft. Safety might be a hard one for us to end up. They could definitely draft a guy, but I think it's going to be hard to put a lot of top end of your draft to it because there'll be a lot of really good talent on both lines of scrimmage in this draft at the front end. And then there'll be a lot of good talent in the front end at linebacker. You know, you get second, third round, and you've got anywhere, and that's what you're advocating for, Tommy. I think they do that. I think the safety one will be hard to pull off, though. Don says it's either going to be Ben Johnson or Mike Kafka. Johnson's not going to hire a DC. John is not going to hire a defensive coordinator. Just my prediction. All right. Well, boy, that you talk about two opposite ends of the scale of excitement, Don. Is anybody else? Am I the only one who can't look at Mike Kafka's face and take it seriously? Is that just a me problem? Probably. William Leonard says, read to McDonald's, boys. 3 Hours says, I think we trade back in the first, take a left guard, then a linebacker in the second round pick, and a quarterback and safety in the third. It's a little bit of what I was doing in my draft today at 3 Hours. I've started to kind of bail on the quarterback approach in the first few rounds because I'm just not as high on some of these guys the more I kind of watch them. Just kind of meh on a lot of them. And I think 3 Hour, even if Zerzan now was there at 16, I'd trade back. Because in watching another game of Zerzan the other night and just thinking about it, I've waffled a little bit back and forth on him as a blue chip. I think I've got to take him out of the blue chip spot of things. Mr. Ken Hawksnest, is there a world where both Johnson and McDonald don't get head coaching jobs this year? Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Kane, 100%. I don't think we've even had McDonald in for, I don't know if we've even interviewed him yet. I don't remember seeing that. So they may have that on there, but yeah. I think Johnson gets a job, Mr. Kane. I don't know about McDonald. That's kind of the question on that one for me. But I think Johnson certainly. Herbert says, I think if we go with an offensive head coach, it's a big mistake. The problem with the Seahawks is we have McVay and Shanahan in our division. Are we betting BJ is better than either of those guys? Yeah, I don't know. Good point. Hard to outdo masters at that spot. Maybe counter it. You know what I mean? For me, I think it's less about considering, to me, Herbicide, who's in your division. I think that the decision on who to choose as a coach is already hard enough. And if you start adding in, how are they going to play this guy? How are they going to play that guy? To me, it's more of you got to look at them in just their own line of, are they the best candidate for the position? Is this guy going to build the best football team? Does he bring the right principles and approach and philosophy? You know, and that if that stuff is right, then he will have an ability to take down even these mighty men down the line. So I think it's just in my opinion, I think you got to remove that part of it from the consideration, really. Because you could just as well as say, well, what if John outdrafts John Lynch on the offensive side of the ball, or on both sides of the ball, and how does that factor into that? There's a lot of ways you can start to play that back and forth game on that front of it a bit. Well, yeah, if we get McDonald and we need to get an offensive coordinator, obviously, do we sign one to a long contract so that we don't have to worry about them being grabbed for a while? I don't think there's a lot of ways you can prevent yourself from getting plucked, coordinator to becoming a coach somewhere. If you're on a 7-year deal as a coordinator, but somebody's going to hire you as a head coach, that contract doesn't hold you to the team. You can still go and then be a new head coach somewhere else. So it may make them feel warm and fuzzy and that they have a place there and that, they've got a long guaranteed contract. But it's rare you find the assistant that just wants to stay where he's at and he's fine and doesn't want that head coaching job. They all want to go and get that next run. It sounds good in theory. It does. I just don't think that when it plays out that you really get the opportunity to do it that way a bit. Figure 610, imagine Ben Johnson goes to Washington and we're the only destination left for Ben Johnson. That would be pretty nice. We get to be his consolation prize, I get that point. Who knows? Maybe there's a connection between us and Johnson for a while now, and it's just been like, you do what you do in Detroit, Ben. We'll be here when you're ready. Playing 3 hour, there's a lot of nice safeties in the draft we could get in the third or even fourth. Yeah, agreed. You don't necessarily have to go and pick one in the higher rounds. There are some interesting ones at the top. That Williams is interesting. I think he goes kind of third-ish. Kitchens and Newbin are late first, second rounder guys. William Leonard, Vrabel would seem like a stepdad for 53 dudes. Maybe awkward at first, but after a while, we'll feel comfortable calling him dad. Exactly. I'm excited for a fresh start, good or bad. It's been a time for a change for years. Yes, it has. Ready for a refresh too. Ready for something new. Tommy, I'm also hopeful for Jarek Reed when he comes back strong. He's really intriguing at safety. He is. Yeah, he is. And hopefully it's a torn ACL they got to bring him back from, which is the tough one, but surgery's getting better and better all the time. And these guys are able to bounce back more and more from that type of injury. So hopefully so. He had some real nice moments last year. What was he, second in the NFL in special teams tackles when he went down? And he played some good safety in the preseason. Roxanne says, I'm in that same headspace about Kafka. Can't take him seriously. No, go look at the photo. Hold on. Wait a second. Just a second. Hold on. Just hold on for a second. Of course. Look at this guy. That's not it. This thing is so stupid sometimes. Why don't I see it? Oh my God. Okay. This guy's stupid face. Just take my word for it. I need a producer. I can say, bring that picture up. Dang, nothing's showing up. There it is. Look at that face. I can't. Please don't make that the next head coach of the Seahawks. Please. Please, John, no. Please, God, no. Not that face. Don't make me watch that face for the next few years. Explain to me why he's losing. We should have played better. I don't know what happened. Reminds me of that Muppet with the lip just flops on over. 3 Hours says, that's fair. Murphy and Devondre would be cool in the second, maybe. Yes, sir. I'd be okay with those guys, either of those two in that point. Tommy says, that's what bothers me about Quinn. He looks like a biker. I want him to at least go ZZ Top and look badass. I might be interested. Give me a 12-inch Kraken beard, Kratos beard instead. That would be pretty coul, especially if he did the eye paint on top of it. Telling me you're not going to let that guy lead you into battle. You know what I mean? At that point. He does have kind of a biker look, doesn't he? Or like maybe he could have been one of the members of YMCA too, a little bit. Dan's got a little bit of that vibe going. Kinley in the third, defensive tackle. He's a good one herbicide. That's what I've got as we're on the same page on that one. I think I've got McKinley in the third. A lot of good defensive tackles in this draft. 3 Hour Murphy's a few people's defensive lineman one. Yeah, I've got him 3 on my list, but I get the people that like him up a bit higher. I started to get, if you guys remember back in the Cardinal days, this guy, I see a lot of players that kind of look like this in the college scene a little bit. He's got kind of some Darnell Dockett vibes to him. A lot of stutter steps at the line of scrimmage from Murphy. 3 Hour, if I took a left guard in the first, I'd take either Fatanu or Barton from Duke. I think that's very likely one of those two guys might end up my pick tonight when this all plays out. And 3 Hour, I like both those linebackers you mentioned too. Trotter, Cooper, both outstanding. I like Cooper a little bit better because he's got the size and length. But Trotter's nice too. And Tommy, yep, a lot of tackles in this draft that can play guard too. Very nice. We need that versatility. We need it. Snail says, B, it's being reported by multiple sources now that the Seahawks can't interview McDonald till after the Ravens are done because of the timing of letting Pete go. They missed that window. Interesting. Maybe they're holding off then. Maybe they're laying in wait. Laying in wait. One can hope. Roxanne says, looks like a rat smelling unwanted predator's urine. It does. It does. I can't do it. Please do not make him the coach. Please do not make him the coach. For the love of Almighty, please don't. Don't do it, John. Don't do it. I'll be over here saying it should have been Raheem. William Leonard, Micah Parsons was asked about Quinn potentially leaving and said, I might even go with him. Would you accept Quinn if Parsons came with? Well, the thing with that is that I get Dan Quinn without having to give up any draft capital for him. I just get Dan Quinn if I hire him as a head coach. To get Parsons, I'm going to have to trade for him, which means that's going to probably cost in the neighborhood, I would guess, of 2-3 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks, a second and a third, and then you're going to have to pay Parsons $30+ million a year, maybe like upwards of 32, 33 per million per year. I don't think I can do that, William. I think that cost is too great. I don't want to make the trade for that. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be interested in letting Quinn go in free agency. And he's just crossed, I believe, his 3rd year. So he's got 2 years of club control plus 2 years of franchise tag control from the Cowboys if they want to take it down that road. I think that's going to be hard to pull that one off. If you can get him in free agency, then I'm fine with it. But I'm not just going to, you know what I mean? I'm not just going to do it just because he likes Dan, kind of thing. I like Parsons a lot, but the cost, I think, would just be too much on both ends. Holy hand grenades, Kafka needs to grow a beard or something. He does, and tuck his lip in. He needs to be like Bubba in Forrest Gump. You got to tuck that lip in. You know what I mean? That thing's just hanging out there like he's got somebody pulling a string down on the top of it. Like, pull that sucker up. Nick, thoughts on Zerzan Newton? Fun player. He is technically my defensive tackle one in this draft. I go back and forth on the tape and watching him. I think when he splashes and he does something impressive, it's really impressive. And you can see how he could be even beastly at the next level. He grows really quiet a lot of times in football games. There are times where he doesn't have as much of a fierce fight going on down there in what he does. He feels like a little bit of a guy with a lot of tools where not always the motor is cranked up at the highest mark. But the tools are very impressive. Some shades to me of another former Seahawks, Sam Adams, a little bit in the first step quickness off the ball at his size being pretty unique. But I will admit, Nick, there's a little bit of a softening for me when it comes to Newton, just a tiny bit. There's a bit of a, you know. Megan says, look at the dead eye look Pumpkin gave you, B. I know. She doesn't like Kafka either. She does not a Kafka girl. I'm telling you. Yeah. Snell says that the new rules are interviewing are ridiculously complicated. Yes, they are. I don't like them at all. Well, I get them. I actually like them. No, I got to tell you, Matt, I kind of like that they made it complicated. I think teams have thought it's best for them to just lock in on one candidate and hire a guy. But I think it's actually better to go through the process with it. And I think that's the NFL gets a little bit too spinning fast through things at times, certain organizations, especially in this way. So it is a lot, but I do like that they've instituted it because I think it'll help teams actually get their best candidate put in place. I think it'll actually work. Yeah. Stephen Coleman says, you're funny, Brando. Thank you, Stephen. John Stillwell says, Steve Wilkes mentioned an hour ago, said to have talked to a team still looking. Ooh, my goodness. So John, and I was talking with John offline, folks, a little bit. Steve Wilkes is somewhat emerged here, kind of out of nowhere as a guy that may enter into this fracas, which wouldn't be very cool to me. Another candidate that, Wilkes is fine, but come on, we could do better than Wilkes. You know? But that's interesting, John. Good information, man. Steve Wilkes. We're no stone is getting left unturned in this forest. We are looking through every coaching. We're going down to the high school level at this point. Roxanne 65 people watching, only 6 likes. Come on, people, hit that like. Oh, it's all good, Roxanne. This is going to be a member stream, so it's offline at this point. I hit the offline button when I realized after I went live. I was like, oops. Because it's supposed to be a member stream, so I want to make sure I'm getting my peeps in here. Herbicide says, call me crazy, but I think we have better talent on D than the Ravens. Maybe. They got some good talent. Hamilton's the truth. Geno Stone in that secondary. They have guys beat right there at both safety positions. Jimmy Smith ain't bad over there on the, not Jimmy Smith, the other guy they got there. Former Alabama corner. Clowney, Matabuki, the 2 inside middle linebackers. Queen and Roquan. I don't know. They might have us. John says we're drilling down. All the way down, man. How far down do you have to get to hit the core of the earth? Was it 30 miles? I don't know. What is it? Jeez Louise, we are looking at everybody. I'll tell you, whoever we pick, it ain't going to be for us like lack of looking at everybody. You know what I mean? We will have considered everyone. You can't say they didn't go through and do their due diligence here. That's for sure. William says, I have to be honest. I just hope Schneider picks off mediocrity and not because of political correctness, because Seattle picks off mediocrity and not because of political correctness. Yeah. I hope so. Not best candidate, man. Just the best candidate. Riverside says we're close. We're close. Holy Angry Day B, what's your hire? I think Wilkes would probably be a Han hire for me. I think you could go Wilkes, Kafka, and Graham would be the 3 for me that would all be like, what? We did, who's it? What? Why? No. That would be my reaction on all three of those. It'd be the Office meme, Michael Scott. No, God, no, dear God, no. That would be it right there. John Stillwell, thank you for celebrating 15 long months as a Hawks Nest Ring of Honor member. Says Jody and her crew may scare off a few. It's true. It's true. How is the view of Jody Allen in league circles? Especially by those coaches that might be the brighter candidates that might be in the more of the know. You know, certainly some of that may factor in here, John. Whether they think the team's being sold or not. You know, do I've got a potential half-cocked owner? Do I trust? We haven't talked about a lot of that on the channel here much, but that certainly would be a monstrous impediment, John. And as we look through the league at those franchises that have had issues through the years in getting the good quality candidates to come to their franchises, like the Cowboys, like the Raiders, you can trace it back to that reputation of the ownership being a big part that weighs heavily into the lack of interest from the bright candidates. John Graham is getting a lot of talk. Getting a ton of talk. Which I hope not. I just hope not. Some of these interviews have been just pretty wild. And maybe they'll be proven to be brilliant, and they're doing their deep dives and they know what they know on this. But some of it looks like you are picking over some of the lesser candidates a little bit. Copper Wise, I watched a video earlier where someone named Fields claimed that Kafka is the guy. Ugh. Jeez. I'm going to hate where this coaching search ends, I think. The more I think about it. The more I think about it. Yeah, there's a lot of claims right now on the rumors, Copper-wise. I think the tough part about this business is that there's a lot of people in that sort of clickbait is their role and what they're doing. And so people are trying to, be the first ones to get out ahead of it, and they're playing the odds, It'd be like if I did a clickbait video of Patrick Graham is going to be your next Seahawks head coach. Well, if he's not, so what? Who cares? I got some people subscribed on because I said that he was going to be, and then if he is, I'm in the know. I'm in the connections. And now I'm a source for you in the future. I think that's kind of a creative way some people try to go out there to become that inside source kind of thing. Herbicide, who do I prefer between Barton and Bebe? I would go with Cooper Bebe at this point, I think. But they're very close to me, Herbicide. I mean, it's cliche to say, but it's just Troy Fatanu, Barton Bebe, they're all right near on the same line. I think they're all top 50 players. I think none of them are blue chip candidates. When you get into tier 2 in this range, it's a very particular range for me in the draft, Herbicide, where those guys are all slotted very closely together. It's much more further together than it's further apart, in that they're just missing first round status. They've got a lot of tantalizing potential in what they bring. All of them are at about that same swing or miss kind of rate to them. John says, well, I've had the pleasure of watching Jody Allen manage personnel. Not a pretty sight. I've definitely heard some stories, folks, offline from John a little bit about Jody's. Definitely sounds like she can sometimes be a bit of a handful. To put it kindly, right, John? To put it kindly. And one thing is if you are that kind of managing type, owner type, whatever position of power you stand, if that's your kind of way you go about your business, it's very hard to hide that even on a casual basis of just meeting someone. It comes off very quickly because that's kind of your speed. Yeah. William Brandon, do you think Pete might have say in the future head coach? I think he will be consulted. What do you think? I don't honestly know on that, William. It seemed like the whole consultant thing was a PR deal. That's been my impression of this, is that the consulting thing was something to lighten this impact. He's still part of the organization, though. He's not just completely gone. I don't know if I believed it as much as the reality of what we're dealing with here. And so I don't think so. I think Pete even said he's going to let this be John's thing. He wants John to have the ability to just kind of run this thing. So they may consult Pete when it comes to players. I don't think it's going to be that way with the coaching search. Tommy Eden says it was Seaside Joe that claimed it was Kafka. Has Seaside Joe proved to be on Dan's Vine show? Has Seaside Joe proven to be a source before? William Leonard, Dan Vines, a real good content creator. I've gone over to Dan's channel. He does good work. Snail, no, if Temper can get a good head coach, still fine. Jody's fine. That's true. Tepper's able to bring somebody in, then. Though you could say Canales is not necessarily the biggest, brightest candidate that was out there on the block either. Yeah. Well, Grenade, when we do hire someone, we have to take into account there will be a growing pains and not great off the bat. Probably, yeah. You gotta be patient with the new guy. To your point, Holy Hand Grenade. Can't try to be in a rush to want to see this thing done fast, but done right. And that's going to require patience on our part to let him have an opportunity to get his personal culture instilled here, the right players that make his scheme work, and to fix the long-standing issues that have been broken. And we do got just a couple more minutes here, folks. I've got to get a little bit of food before I pop over because we've got a 7 o'clock show tonight on the B&B show. So I've got to kind of wrap it up here in just a couple minutes so I can get I'm a little bit of hungry here, so I can get a little bit of food. Then we bounce back quickly here and get you guys another show going on the tonight for the mock draft. John says Pete Carroll will not be with the Hawks when the season starts. Yeah. I don't think the consultant thing, I think you would agree with me on this, John. I don't think the consultant thing was a real thing. I think it was just, maybe we'll come to him here, or maybe we won't. It makes it sound better to the fan base that, he's not just being kicked to the curb. He's still a part of the family, right? He's in the Ohana, John. He's in the house on the back of the property, but he's still on the property, I think that's a bit of their acknowledgement from it, John, too, that they knew that it was going to be a hire that wasn't going to exactly sit great with everybody. So it's kind of like trying to just soften that load a little bit, soften it down just a little bit. John Stillwell says, if they hire Quinn, I'll send you a Christmas gift every year. I'll tell you this, John. I wasn't big on Dan Quinn, but you're going to start telling me Mike Kafka's like being rumored as the hot guy. I'm like, no, Quinn's fine. I'll take fine, It's like, no. I can get by on Quinn. I can do Quinn. Quinn's okay. Kafka. Oh. John says going slow is going to give us more choices. It will. And I think it has been proven good so far, John, in the respective look at the guys that have gone off the board. Have we lost anybody that's been hired that we really wanted? Raheem Morris? Dave Canales? I get Harbaugh. I know we wanted him. But that may have not been realistic from the onset because he may have wanted the power that he wanted. But I look through the hirings and where guys have gone, you kind of go, hey, we've sort of Tennessee going with Callahan. Like, hey, all right. We do have kind of our pick and going with the slow roll approach. It doesn't seem like it's bit us in the butt here, And that's the thing I think you worry about in these searches sometimes, John, is that you get so locked in on a candidate and then you feel like we got to not talk to these other guys because we just got to roll right into this guy because, that's where we got to go with this. I don't know. I think it's going to prove out to hopefully be for the best. Though I will say if it's Kafka, then I'll be like, the process was broken. They needed to speed it up. They talked to too many people. They got lost in the forest despite the trees. Somebody's going to have to sell me on the Kafka hire, man. What are we doing? Kafka? Please, no. Williams says, I wonder if Pete will coach again. He said he was still ready to go, maybe college coach. Seems like him and both Belichick are going to have to wait a year, William, which I don't know if that helps for guys that are going to their 70s. I don't know if waiting a year helps you to come back out. Kind of try to do the old Dick Vermeil approach, I guess. Maybe it'll work. Gets maybe some better options. I don't know. John Stillwell says, Brandon, we know who the new coach is going to be. Oh, God, I hope it's true, John. I hope to, as much as ever right now, as much as ever. I feel like a child right now, John, when I say, like, wanting the Christmas gift, for Santa to send. Santa, please. Just send that thing, that one gift, please. You do not need to send any further. I do not require any more. Just send me the one gift. Down that line, that one good coach, not named Mike Kafka, Patrick Graham. Please, please, Santa. I hope, I pray to God, John. I pray to all that is holy and well in the world that in light of these other options, it's that one. I will be doing literal handstands on the channel right now if that does prove to be the case. Roxanne Roll says, tune in every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. on ESPN2 for the Bill and Pete Show. Belichick's prickly way is up against the sunshiny heat of Pete Carroll. Watch the two collide. I don't know. They don't play defense. But their energy. You got to talk about their energy, Bill, when you talk about them. Energy is great. I don't know. Energy is stupid. I don't like their energy. It's discipline. So they got to run away. They're just bitches. I don't know what they're doing out there. I don't know what they're doing out there. I'm telling you right now, it's a good team. The guy going right now, Bill, we just got to watch them. They're ready to lock in. They're turning around. It'd be just negative, positive, negative, positive. John Stillwell says, suppose they send the wrong mic. At this point, I'll accept, John, 2 of the 3 mics that we have on the table, okay? I'm not being greedy, okay? I'm not throwing all the mics away. I'm still keeping 2 of the mics on the table here. But we do need to throw one of the mics away with this. One of them needs to go. One of them needs to go out at this point. And it's probably Kafka. Tommy says, you know what Pete's advisory role is? John asks his opinion on a coach, and it's a positive. He moves on to the next head coach. That'd be funny. John, through all these years, learned if Pete likes the guy, then he starts applying it to the personnel in the draft. Pete, look at this guy. What do you think of him? Oh yeah, he's gonna be great. He's got the juice. He's got the energy. William Leonard, why aren't you super high on McDonald? Oh, I am high on McDonald. Kafka is the one I'm talking about, William. McDonald is currently my 3rd. So I've got Ben Johnson, Vrabel, McDonald. McDonald comes in at 3. I think on all 3 of these guys, I have pretty much a fairly similar level of excitement on their hires, especially William in consideration of these other guys they're looking at, the B team, as I would like to call it. These guys are the A team. Give me the A team. Give me Baracus. Okay? What you talking about, fool? Like, that's what I want. I want the B team. So McDonald, part of the A team. Johnson, part of the A team. Vrabel, part of the A team. But no, McDonald's great. He is the equivalent to me, William, of what Ben Johnson does on the offensive side of the ball. Tell me, what do defensive coaches need? A good defensive line? We don't got one. What do offensive coaches need? A quarterback, weapons? We got that. No brainer. Hire an offensive coordinator. I think that's a certain logic you could apply to this that makes sense. John Stillwell says, I'll be back with new material. I love it, man. God, I hope you're right, John. Dude, I hope you're right. God, I hope you're right. Yeah, I think that's logically a way you could go with it, Tommy. I mean, you could also say a little bit too that, investment in the defensive line, new approach on the defensive line, new approach defensively. These are things that can help out as well. Kevin O'Connell, what was the turmoil between Tennessee front office and Vrabel? They just didn't reportedly see eye to eye. You can see it, Kevin, on the video with the announcement of the Vrabel trade, and they go into the war room of Tennessee, and you got the general manager sitting there, and Vrabel's sitting there, and Vrabel gets up and he's shaking his head and he's dismayed. And I think that's a little bit of where that was at. And that was just one decision, but there were a variety of other choices and decisions that were made and the way that they set up their cap. It's just, I can understand where Vrabel had an issue with it. You look at the last couple of drafts with Tennessee in particular, it's been a very big mixed bag. And it's not always made sense what exactly their approach is. You make Tannehill the highest paid quarterback in the league for 2 straight years. Then you draft a quarterback in the 3rd round. Then you come back and draft a quarterback in the 2nd round the next year after that. I think not always do coaches got a reason to bitch and moan about what the front office is doing. I don't think Carroll had any reason to bitch or moan about what the Hawks front office did, for instance. But I do think Vrabel had a little bit of a rightful place to point out some things. Harborside says, I thought Vrabel for sure would find a landing spot. I did too. I do wonder a little bit about him if he's not maybe sitting there wondering about the rumors in KC, if those are not going to come true, where we're hearing maybe some rumors that Reed might be, especially if they go out on top with a Super Bowl win this year, looking at potential retirement. LS, why are you so low on Kafka? Not regarding his face. He has tutelage under Reed, right? He does have tutelage under Reed, which I suppose is worth something. He wasn't a coordinator under Reed, though. He's been a coordinator for 2 years. I don't think that he's done any kind of tremendous work with the Giants that earns him a head coaching job. It's a little bit like a lot of these candidates that get talked about where it feels premature to me. He had 1 good year of coordinating with the Giants where it was a lot of smoke and mirrors offense to me. It wasn't an offense that I go, wow, that's an offense really pushing the ball forward. It was, I'm going to run read option with my quarterback at a shotgun. I'm going to lean on Saquon Barkley for a ton of carries. I'm going to simplify the offense down to, okay, Daniel, it's going to be a read option where you either keep it for the 5 yards, so I turn you into like a running back, or you're going to throw the slant on the backside. Wash, rinse, repeat. 1 year of that to middling success offensively. I don't understand how that equals out to you now being a head coaching candidate. I think that's where I say you need to go do some more work. You need to get back in the kitchen and learn some more skills. I'm not going to hold him a whole lot of account to this year because you're dealing with a lot of other things outside of his control, but they still weren't good this year. They were still bad. So you got 1 year and you've got, hey, I learned some stuff from Andy Reid. Feel like we can do better than that, LS. You know what I mean? Feels like there's a better move out there to be made than that. William Leonard says, Brando, great Vrabel video. Kind of persuaded me. Thank you, William. Glad to hear it. He's grown on me too as well. Stephen, I want a Super Bowl coach. I do too, Stephen. Dave Chamberlain says, there's too many reasons not to hire Quinn. So I'm sure when it comes down to contracts, ... I mean, not that. I don't know what you're going to say on the other side of that. Sorry. Tommy, if Campbell bites ankles, Vrabel headbutts into a suplex. Hire the muscle. I love that. Campbell bites ankles, Vrabel headbutts into a suplex. Hire the muscle. Let's go. That's a beautiful way of putting it, man. I might steal that, Tommy. I might steal that. If he gets hired, I'm going to steal that. I'm totally stealing that. Yeah, William, Dan Quinn just doesn't do much. Doesn't do much. Kevin O'Connell, Kafka sounds like Carroll. Does kind of roll off the tongue like Carroll. Tommy, with Quinn, I'm sure it comes down to who he can bring on his staff, which is where Chip Kelly rumors probably stem from. I didn't know they had a relationship. Maybe that was John's idea. Supposedly John's got a connection back to UCLA, or there's some connection back to UCLA there. So this could be John putting it all together and having a comfortability with Quinn to broach it in this way. Be more Seahawks. I'm having a great day. You caught me just wrapping it up here, though, on the stream because we're good 2 hours in almost here, and I need to go get some food really quick because I got 20 minutes until we got to turn around here for the B&B show. I thank everybody for watching today. Appreciate all of you for being members and patrons of the channel. We will keep these shows going. Sorry, got a little bit messed up at the start there by getting it live and on the regular channel, but I appreciate you guys hanging in nonetheless on this side of it throughout. Some good discussion here in the channel for sure. But I've got to go get some food here because I got just 20 minutes. We're going to be doing the B&B show here right back really quickly, right back at you. So tune in for that. Thank you guys for watching. We will be back for next Thursday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time at that point. Great discussion as always. Thanks for doing what you guys do to help this channel go and all of your support that makes this channel roll. And we will continue to keep coming with these shows throughout the course of this offseason big time. So remain a member of the channel. The Bennies will continue to keep coming. Thank you for that support. Back in 20 minutes with the B&B show. But until that time, please do not you ever forget. Go Hawks.